What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be checking out MSTR and Bitcoin today. Just trending sideways, pretty much how we were speaking of. It's kind of the short-term outlook, just trending sideways until potentially Friday, based off of the inclusion and the unemployment rate. I think the unemployment rate would probably be more of a major factor in my opinion. But of course, both of them can turn out to be nothing. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in the market. Things are always subject to change. These are always just speculative ideas, and we kind of just go with the flow. Expecting sideways chop and some kind of break either to the downside or to the upside. And then that break, I would expect to see a bounce off of the structure here and continue, or like I said prior, breakdown, retest, and continue. It's kind of my outlook in the meantime. Today's close was at 341.62. A little more volume today than the previous day. We fell all the way down to 331, and we did make it up to almost 350, around 348.50. This other day prior on Friday was pretty flat, not much volume. Today's volume was 11.1 million. Versus 10 million. So, I mean, it really wasn't that much higher. I guess only 10% higher, but at least it looked like there was a lot more volume based off of the candle. Overall, it's just sideways action. We're still kind of in this wait and see factor where we pull fib here. You can see the two levels I'd be watching for, or zones, is the 382. And then the 0.5 to 618 as a whole zone right there. Those could be a continuation to the downside. The bullish scenario would be if we can close above the 0.618 and the 0.5, retest off of them and continue that move higher. Because as you move up the sequence, it's pretty much invalidating this bearish move here. Now these fib levels don't go anywhere, so that's always something to take into consideration. So we still have this old fib to the downside that was part of the reason why we were continuing to the downside, 0.5 to 618 here. So that's another level to watch out for at the 411 to around 421 mark. So that's what I'd be looking out for right now. And then of course, on a major time frame, we have this large fib that has served as a lot of resistance. We're speaking about that way over here, saying that we'd expect some kind of resistance. And that's exactly what we've actually had. Even after making higher highs, we've still ended up falling back underneath this 0.5 to the 618. And this golden zone sits at 387 to around 425. A while back, we did say once we break that structure and get a close retest, it would increase the odds of us continuing higher. But as you can see, MSTR has deviated from its course pretty significantly. And Bitcoin also at the same time hasn't really done much in the past few months. So it's kind of tied together with that, along with the other factors that MSTR deals with on a daily basis. That pretty much that third-party risk that you put yourself in once you put your money into MSTR. Obviously, when you're in Bitcoin, you don't have that third-party risk. It's just strictly whatever the price does. Now we are bouncing off this SMA that we were speaking of prior. We closed right on it and we opened slightly underneath it, but now we're still playing above it. On the daily, we would have been, we would close above it, but this is a weekly moving average, so it kind of is irrelevant. On the daily, like I said, we're at 341. Our 200-day SMA is sitting at 357. And we have our 20 actually coming down to the 200, and it looks like it might end up crossing. I think it crosses if we actually play out this bear flag. If not, then it probably will bounce off the 200 and start to curl back upward. Or if it dips underneath, maybe it's a short-lived dip, and then we curl back up and start to see some upside, hopefully. MSTR divided by IBIT, you can see it has fallen off pretty dramatically from this peak over here, July 14th, this week. and it's fallen all the way down from 678 to 512, and now we're just trending sideways. So we'll see if we can actually find a bottom, or if this is a sideways chop for a continuation down. Hopefully it's the first scenario and we get a V-shaped recovery. Once we surpass this wick here at 556, we do have clean moves, from 557 all the way to around 6 overall. So we'll see if that ends up playing out. And on the daily, it's starting to look like a nice little double bottom, starting to create higher lows. So we'll see if this actually plays out. We do have some levels to watch out for when you pull fibs. 0.5 of 618 is sitting at 561 to around 575. So that's another level to look out for. And on the major leg here, 0.5 of 618 is sitting at 616 to around 594. So we're hoping to see MSTR divided by IBIT start to outperform or start to increase in value, because that's the whole purpose of being an MSTR. It's to struggle in the downturn with Bitcoin and then outperform Bitcoin in the upswings. Right now the 20 is about to surpass the 50 to the downside on the weekly. So that's going to be another key level that we have to watch out for, along with that 0.5 is 618. That's going to be a lot of resistance above our head. On the daily, we do have the 20 slowly pushing down on us, and it's sitting at the 557 level, and we're sitting at 543. So that's going to be our first level that we're going to have to break, along with this wick right here at the 557, and that could free up price a little bit and allow it to push up to higher levels. Now Bitcoin's starting to look pretty nice after this close right inside of the structure here. We closed at 108, 160, and now it looks like we're getting a nice little green engulfing candle. For now at least, it's still early in the week. We still have 5 days left, so a lot can happen. But it is a pretty solid start. As you can see, we were down to 107.3, and we have made it to 111,739, currently sitting at 111.5. On the daily, looks pretty solid. 3 green days in a row so far, or 2 green days after this close here. We closed at 111, 118, or I'm sorry, 111, 187. And now we're starting to see a little bit more upside. We'll see if we can break this wick and this key structure and get another daily close as well to the upside. We would like to see that close back above this structure at 113 or higher, and eventually move up to this next structure. On the weekly SMA, it looks like we found some support off of that in confluence with this structure, and we're getting this nice green candle at the moment. Of course, this is still early in the week, like I said, and things can change. And on the daily, we have this 20 moving average that's going to be a key level of resistance in confluence with this structure right here in the middle of these zones here. So the structure at 112 to around 113K should be a key level of resistance. So be aware of that, and don't be surprised if we see a little bit of wicking action before finally pushing through. Now, we typically don't deviate from the 8-week or 8-day moving average for too long. This usually holds the short-term swings intact, and we fell underneath it, and now it looks like we're getting this green engulfing candle to push back to that moving average to see if we're actually going to hold it or use it as rejection to the downside. And the same thing on the daily. We deviated, went sideways for a couple days, and now we're back above it, and we're starting potentially a new trend to the upside. Hopefully they hold the short-term trends, as you can see here. Like you can see here, from August 3rd to around August 13th, so a 10-day trend, and then we started to fall down. Slightly deviated for some time. It held the trend temporarily from August 14th to August 29th, so about 2 weeks, and now we're back above it. So like I said, it holds the short-term trends, and that's kind of how we use it to kind of identify what could be coming for, the next 2 weeks or so. A shorter-term outlook. Tether dominance is creating higher highs and higher lows still at the moment. If you connect the bottoms, you can see we're still holding that structure. Hopefully we can deviate to the downside, break, retest, and continue down. Right now we're sitting at 4.43 after a a couple of attempts to push up higher. We made it up to 4.6 and 4.56, and we found rejection. We'll see if that can continue and eventually see lower levels. Overall, it looks like we have broken out of this downward sloping trend line that we had established. But I'm not surprised because you can see the moves were getting weaker and weaker. You can see how long that first leg was. Next leg was shorter. And then this leg was even shorter. So you could see the move was kind of like losing steam to the downside. And we just started to flip back upward, which is not good for Bitcoin because this is tether dominance. And this shows capital flowing from risk on to risk off and risk off to risk on. We want to see a potential retest of this trend line. That would be nice to see, and a fall through would be awesome. And if we can make it down to the blue line, that would be perfect, and that would be more than likely a local top that we'd be seeing for Bitcoin, even potentially a top for the entire cycle once we make it to the blue line, as we have made it there prior, and every time we've made it, it has been some kind of top for Bitcoin. And for those who have not seen it, tether dominance overlaid with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the pink. You can see the local tops happened when the blue line was touched. So you can see how the top happened multiple times around this area. And you could argue that maybe we have seen the bottom here, because it came relatively close, but we didn't actually get a touch. So we'll of course see, and I'll keep you guys updated, of course, as I always do. But that is an argument that you could have and say, okay, well, we made it to 3.95. It was only down to 382 or 385, so that's pretty close to call it. And maybe that was our local top, at least temporarily. Maybe we get a double bottom. That was kind of my thought process, that we'd more than likely get some kind of double bottom, like a secondary retest to see if we want to hold it or not, before continuing back up and then seeing some downside on Bitcoin. And as tether dominance skyrockets, that's when we'll more than likely get our 2026 or 2027 bear market that we're anticipating. ETH Bitcoin. ETH has been outperforming Bitcoin pretty steadily for a few months now, all the way back to around the week of April 21st. We've had a nice uptrend, pretty steep move right here. We had two trend lines pretty much right there, that first one, and then a very steep one here that we've been holding pretty well. We've had one retest, and now it looks like we might have a secondary retest right now. We'll see if it holds and ETH can continue to outperform Bitcoin. We want to see that because that's going to slowly lead us into that altcoin as capital flows from Bitcoin to ETH to smaller market cap coins, and that brings the FOMO into the market that we need for Bitcoin to see higher levels if we want to hit the midline on Bitcoin or make it to the top of that channel. I don't know if we're going to make it to the top of the channel on Bitcoin, but more than likely the midline of the channel would be that potential top for Bitcoin. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here on Bitcoin and MSTR. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Check out the WAP and Discord. The link is in my bio. I'll see you guys in the next one.